What is mineralization? Well, it can be several things. It could be ancient habitation, hundreds and thousands of years of iron and things like that, or it could just be a natural occurrence. But there's different levels of mineralization all over the world. So the detector doesn't know what's mineralization and what's a good target. So by ground balancing it, you're training the detector to ignore the ground. And it's as simple as that. It's a form of ground rejection. So once you've got the ground rejected, everything else to the detector is a positive target. So following that, we need to reject the iron. Once we've rejected the iron or given the iron a tone, everything else to the detector is a positive target. And this is what makes our life easier. Now, when should you ground balance? There's several ways of doing that on a dais, but what I'd suggest is let the machine tell you when to ground balance. If you've got the dais full, you will see the mineralization strength meter on the right of the machine. It's a section of blocks. Now, if them blocks go quite high, above 4, you've got quite high minerals in your soil. Then ground balance the machine. If the blocks don't go any higher than 1 or 2, you've got pretty neutral soil, so just leave it on the preset 87 to 90 and that'll be fine. As you're detecting, you'll see 2 numbers in the right hand side of the screen. The bottom number is your ground balance setting. The number above that is the suggested setting. That's your actual ground number. So I'm using a factory preset of 90 at the moment, but the number above it is 86. So it's telling me the ground balance is 86. So if I wanted to get some more performance out of my machine, I could drop it down manually to 86 and just get a little bit more out of it. But personally, I like to use 90 because it suits 99% of the ground conditions here in the UK. Now, those comfortable with the dais would get more performance by entering the ground balance menu and adjusting it up and down using their ears. There's another way of doing it as well. There's the pumping feature, where you access the pumping through the GB menu, follow the on-screen instructions and pump the coil up and down, and then you've got a snapshot of exactly what's under the coil. And then there's tracking. This is where the dais constantly tracks the ground as you're detecting, so it's making fine changes all the time. But that's an expert setting. I stick with a 90 preset ground balance most of the time because it deals for most of the soil. So if you're new to the dais and you just want an easy life, stick with a 90. For this experiment, we're going to demonstrate the difference in performance a correct ground balance can make. Now what we're going to do, we're going to bury a reasonably high conductive target. It's a Victorian halfpenny. First of all, we're going to go over it in the standard preset setting, and then we're going to ground balance to the soil and see if we get any better performance. Right, we've got that coin buried at about 10 inches, so we're using the factory preset ground balance mode at 90. Let's have a listen and see what it sounds like. Just on the fringe of the depth. That's pretty good though, quite impressive. But we may be able to squeeze a little bit more performance out of it by manually ground balancing it. So this is what we do. We enter the ground balance, manual, using the minus keys, we're dropping it down. We want to drop it down until we start to hear the ground while we're pumping, and then we just raise it up a little bit. That's the ground. That's an incorrect ground balance. An ideal position is so it's just on the point of having eliminated that noise. Nearly there. Perfect. Let's try it again. So using a manual ground balance will give you a slight performance advantage. It's nothing major, it's just to get the very last bit out of your XP dais. Personally, I like to stick on factory presets for most of my searching, as I said earlier, but that's just for the experienced user. Pay attention when adjusting the ground balance manually. It's okay to go below the factory presets of 90, but don't go above it, because if you go above it, you may make the machine quieter in certain circumstances, but you will lose big silver. I mean, big silver what registers around 90 to 95 on the screen. So if you go above plus 90 on the ground balance, you will put them targets into the reject range. If you're using pumping, which is a feature on the Deus, you pump the coil and it automatically ground balances. If you get the words GB fail come up, it's quite possible that there isn't enough minerals in your soil to activate the circuitry. So just leave it on the presets and you'll be absolutely fine. Discrimination levels. The factory presets are pretty good at dealing with most iron. The Goldmax Power and the Deus Fast run a level of 6.8, which can deal with pretty much all of your farmland iron. There's certain pieces of iron a metal detector just won't reject. Here's a short experiment just to show you the different types of iron. We've got a large nail, a small nail, and quite a large heavy chunk of iron. The Deus on factory preset levels will deal with these pieces of iron without any problem. The real skill is identifying the odd shaped iron. Here's what we're going to do. The small nail, you get the low tone, which is perfect. The big nail, once again the low tone, no problem at all. But the square chunk of iron, you're getting the two tones coming through. What I do to identify the big iron is wiggle over the top of it with the coil and slowly move back, and then as you're coming off the target you'll get the buzz. There's the buzz on the edge of the target. Back on it, wiggle back. And that's a good tip on how to tell if it's misshaped iron. As you scroll through the Deus menu, you'll see program number 10, which is called Goldfield. Okay, it's used for searching out gold in highly mineralised areas and ironstone. But we can also use it to our advantages inland. The key is to look at the mineralisation bar on the right hand side of the screen. Now, if that's pumping near the top, you've got a full range of blocks, you might want to try using Goldfield because it penetrates through the badly mineralised soil a lot better than other modes. You've got limited iron rejection on it, you can reject big iron or nothing, so it's almost an all metal setting, but you will increase your finds rate if you're on mineralised soil. It's probably not worth using Goldfield for everyday searching, but just remember, if you do get a site which is nasty on the soil, give Goldfield a try.